Folks, thank you. We'll come back to order. Let me explain where we're going, just so there's clarification. First, there's been two words that have been interchanged back and forth that have been confusing me, I'll confess. I may be the thick one here, but there's a difference between packets and permits. And what our agency has been issuing is 400 packets with 3 permits each. That is how we've gotten to the 1,200. So I would ask us to be very conscious of how we're using those words, because they are very different and they are very important. Number two, when I hit the off button here, the committee will continue to go back out of session, and that will allow for public comments. At an appropriate time, when we believe we have all the public comments, the committee will go back into session. And Commissioner Ripley was very appropriate in calling for the questions. We just needed to have some time for the public. So I would ask that someone call for the questions when they believe it is the appropriate time, and then you have an amendment on the table within the committee and the committee only. There must be a majority for that amendment for anything to pass out of committee, and at that time, we will come back to the commission. I'm probably saying that to make sure I've got it right more so than anybody else's benefit in here, but if it helped you, I'm glad. So with that, Commissioner Teague, I'll turn it back over to you. You are out of session on public comments right now for the committee only.
So I need to ask for additional public comment. Is there additional public comment?
Where's Mike Butler? Mike, do you have, you've heard this discussion that we've had. Is there a compromise position that you would support? In other words, if we didn't go to the full number of packets, 775, would your organization support expanding the season as has been advocated?
I think the director and some of the other staff have brought up some great points about when you're going to expand statewide, not wanting to create expectations on volume of packets and things like that. That makes sense. I could see that. That could get a little hairy. If you could expand the season, like you just said, then that would provide the existing permit holders the maximum opportunity. And the concerns we heard last year from several folks down there about not being able to access the birds when they were there, we think that is not going to change probably in the new proposal. So that would be one thing that would stay static. And then the other pieces, you could deal with the concerns that were raised that I think are valid. So yes, we could.
Okay, thank you.
Could I ask you to repeat the initial proclamation, the agency's recommendation, and then I would like to ask Chairman Cox to repeat his amendment.
Sure. And what I did during the break is I edited the alternative that I shared to match what Commissioner Cox, I believe, recommended. So we'll be able to look at both of these. So here's the current agency recommendation for Proclamation 1631 regarding sandhill cranes for the 16-17 season. Again, we're just changing the dates to account for this year's calendar. The season would open November 26th and 27th, close and reopen December 3rd, close on January 1st. It's about a 37-day season. We'd continue to issue 400 3-permit packets by handheld drawing at Hiawassee for a total of 1,200 permits, individual crane permits, to 400 people. Let me skip down 2 slides now. And I believe this is the amendment that Commissioner Cox has crafted. So in this case, we're basically shifting the dates to the end of the season. The season would open December 3rd and go through Thursday, January 12th. It would close on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, January 13th, 14th, and 15th during the Crane Festival, reopen on Monday, January 16th, and close the last Sunday in January with duck season, January 29th. And his current recommendation, I believe, is to issue all 775 3-permit packs for a total of 2325 permits.
There would be a call for questions, and then there are two alternatives available to the committee. First, you have an amendment and a second on the floor. There could not be any other amendments proposed until that is voted on, and a majority must vote in favor of that for it to pass. If there was consideration by the person who made the amendment and the person who seconded it to withdraw so that the alternate that Commissioner Ripley and Mr. Butler spoke to could be considered, that can be done, but they must withdraw the amendment first.
I guess Chairman, I'd be curious to know what Commissioner Cox's thought would be on the sort of the compromise that Mr. Butler and I spoke of.
My opinion is we're compromising hunter opportunity, and that's not something that I think should be compromised when the federal government told us that we could do this on the beginning. We compromised for the birding community to reassure them that we heard them and we were going to make sure that we didn't overharvest the birds. That was the compromise that was made. We have performed, the birds are increasing, the interest level is increasing. Had the calendar not moved, we would not be here talking about this. This would be as I am proposing it right now. The only difference is that we didn't file in the time that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife would like for it to be done. If I compromised, I'm compromising hunter opportunity, and I'm not really interested in that. I don't know who we're worried about upsetting. We've performed admirably, the hunters have. We have not killed any whooping cranes. We have not overharvested, not hurt the resource. We're expanding hunter opportunity just as we would be doing had the calendar not shifted. So this is not something that would not be proposed had the agency in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service gotten the calendars right. This is the same thing that would have been proposed, that they'd be proposing next year, this year. So that's my opinion, and I would restate my amendment to increase to 775 3-permit packages, and the new dates that were on that December 3rd, whatever they are, Joe, to the 12th, 16th through the 29th, with a clarification that next year, the proposal would be to leave 775 permits or packets, but make them 2-permit packs and take the rest of the 1,200 total permits and expand them to statewide. The only reason we're not doing it this year is because we didn't apply on time to do that. We can't have a statewide season. So we're going to have the same number of packets available to the hunters in the zone, which is what Mr. Benedict suggested we do next year. If we could make an amendment this year to do it, I would do that, but that's not appropriate, so we need to expand it to 775, just like we should have done, in my opinion, the first year. So I would like to restate my amendment to have a vote on it.
Commissioner Cox, just.
Yes, sir.
The amendment as you proposed it is as is on the screen, and that is 775 packets with 3 permits each and the dates as shown.
That's correct.
I know your desires for next year, that would be an amendment to amendment, so we'll just let the record reflect that that is a hope and a desire for next year.
Right.
But it cannot be included as part
I
of this
didn't
amendment.
intend to, no.
Okay.
I just
Thank
said
you,
that's
sir.
what would be done, but we couldn't do it this year, it'd be next year.
Mr.
My
Chairman,
misunderstanding. Thank you, sir.
does Commissioner Cox include the 3-day closure in his amendment?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Out of respect to the Crane Festival.
Am I understanding that the season closes on, okay, you have it on the 12th now instead of 13th? That's, okay. So it's closed for 3 full days. It closes at sundown on the 12th, correct?
Mr. Chairman, so we're on the amendment as it's been proposed, just for clarification, and I realize that he is not a member of the committee, but I heard Commissioner Watson's comments earlier, and I I would like to ask him if he has changed his thoughts on that in any way, or if the comments that he made earlier stand on this amendment.
I would like to see the proposal that Mike and Jim were talking about, which my understanding would be 400 permits, leave the permits the same, extend the season, and move forward with that. That's what I would like to see happen.
Thank you, and, I have not had a lot of time to think about this, but a couple of thoughts just to comment on the amendment then. One, just as a, memory, I think I wrote this commission when I was a member of the legislature, supporting a full statewide season at its maximum that the biology could handle. So that has been my consistent position for many years. That hasn't changed. It was my position when we came to the agreement that is our current season. Even though that is how I strongly feel, and I have consistently been there and will continue to be, I'm concerned about the timing of this, the public notice that Commissioner Watson noted, and he described this as ground zero for him. I think it's significant that when we're talking about something that's in a member's district, exclusively in their district, we should at least be circumspect about the dynamics that occur within that district in the public, even when we have a strong position in support of something. And so it's for really, and I think that the position of the agency, while it may even adjust in further debate today, knowing what I hope will come next year, and I perhaps may bring it myself, on a full statewide season when we finish this experimental phase, I'm going to very respectfully oppose the amendment, but I very much understand and support the intentions behind it.
Mr. Chairman, I call for the question on the amendment.
I have a motion to amend Proclamation 16-31 and a second, and this is a committee vote only. All in favor of the amendment to Proclamation 16-31, say aye. All opposed?
No.
The amendment did not pass.
Mr. Chairman, I would propose another amendment, if that's appropriate. And that would be to keep the current number of packets, the 400, whatever that number is, to expand the season as shown on the display now, and to have the 3-day closure.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and I have a second to amend Proclamation -31 to extend days of the season, but keep the 400 packet part of the proclamation as it has been the last 3 years. Any discussion from the committee?
I apologize. I'd like to understand the proposal. So would you, if the proposer of it would just walk me through it, because I'm slow.
What I've heard, Commissioner Woodson, is that
I can read it.
we need to hunt these birds later in the year, that there was a problem last year with warm weather. My proposal or amendment would accomplish that, number one. Number two, I am concerned, as was Director Carter, that we increase number of packets in a zone this year, and then we take them away. And I understand Commissioner Cox was talking in terms of reducing the number of birds per packet, but I still think that would cause confusion. So I feel like what this amendment does is it works a compromise, hopefully helping us to harvest more birds. It protects the Crane Festival with the 3-day break. but it maintains the number of packets, and then next year we can look at what we need to do with increasing the number of packets. Did that help at all?
It very much did, and I am, at the appropriate time, I'd just like to ask the commissioner to kind of walk through his understanding and, you know, in terms of especially, it actually makes later season is a much better time to do it, but I'd really like the commissioner who represents this area impacted at some point, whatever time's appropriate for the chairman to make comment on the amendment.
I'm very much for the amendment, as Jim stated.
Any questions from the audience? If there's no questions?
Wait, can I ask you, you hadn't asked for the commission yet. What if we've had 400 permits, we've sold them out really quick. What if Commissioner Watson?
We're actually,
Sorry, sir, we've got a motion, an amendment, and a second on the floor. Your questions can be specifically related to that. Now,
It is?
If it fails and you want to suggest an alternative, that could take place. So
as chair of this committee, can we do the committee vote, and then we'll have an opportunity for the commission and the audience to comment when we go to full committee vote. And this amendment changes only the season dates of this proclamation to show that the season will be December 3rd through January 12th, and then closing for a 3-day period of time, which is January 13th, 14th, and, closing January,
The sunset on the 12th.
okay, sunset on the 12th. Well, you're getting, okay. Yeah, I just want to be, that's fine. It closes sunset on the 12th and opens
No, he's asking the committee. I'm sorry.
sunrise on the 16th. So there's a 3-day hunting closure. And then is open again January 16th through the 29th.
So,
Everyone, go ahead. You have a question?
no.
All in favor of this motion? I asked for public comment. I did not get any. All in favor of this amendment to Proclamation 16-31, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Chairman, the Wildlife Committee, well, we have to vote on the proclamation as well.
Well, we're out of, we can take it out of committee at this point. Is that correct? I look to Commissioner Woodson because I trust her parliamentary procedure.
I voted on the amendment, but not the, yeah, we voted on the amendment. We need to vote on the proclamation as amended in committee. If there's no further discussion, I'd like to vote on Proclamation 16-31 as amended. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay. Committee, Wildlife Committee has voted, and I recommend passage of Proclamation 16-31 as amended.
Chairman Teague, thank you. Thank you for your leadership through this. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second from Commissioner Bledsoe. Is there any discussion at the commission as a whole?
Thank you,
Commissioner
sir.
Baker, you're recognized.
Thank you, sir. If we're drawing these 400 permits, would the committee would the commission consider going to 500 this year for Hiawassee? David, if we've got these people, if we're developed a culture down here, we steadily increase it. Let's give some people that maybe not get drawn an opportunity if we issue another 100 of these packets. How would you feel about that, Commissioner Watson?
One of the concerns with the increasing the permits in that area is that you're going to come back and take them away the next year. So you're going to, once you give something to, my experience has been, once you give something to someone, it's very hard to take it back. Even if we take back the, if we go to 500 and they're gonna lose 100. So I think it's best to stay right at the 400 and just extend the season as such as what they just voted on. That would be my opinion. Because again, I think the original proposal from the agency is for this area next year is to keep 400 permits for this particular hunt zone. Is that correct?
Any other comments from the commission? Commissioner Swan, you're recognized.
Yes, would you read the motion we're going to be voting on, please? The amended motion.
You're mad at me, aren't you? I can tell. That's, we are voting on Proclamation 16-31, the duck and goose and crane hunting seasons, as amended by committee to reflect changes in the sandhill crane season as follows. The season will now open December 3rd, will close at sunset January 12th, 2017. It will reopen at sunrise January 16, 2017, and close January 29 at sunset 2017. The number of packets, which currently is at 400, will remain the same, and the number of permits in each of those packets at 3 permits per packet will also remain the same.
Thank you.
Now, just, and as a point of clarification, Commissioner Ripley's right to point out, in the dates that I have just outlined, there is a 3-day closure of the season out of respect for the festival.
Very commendable.
You're next, buddy. All right. No, it needed to be clarified. Thank you for the question. Are there any other questions or comments from the commission? Are there any questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, are we ready to vote? All in favor of Proclamation 16-31, duck, goose, and crane hunting seasons, as amended and presented by committee, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Proclamation 16-31 passes. Thank you so much, and I will say, the discussion at this level is commendable. We have been accused of being a rubber stamp in the past. If anybody believes that, they are not watching this tape today. So thank you so much. Commissioner Teague, coming back to you regarding land proclamations.